I want to share a game fragment with you that I played recently. This came out of a Benko Gambit. I'm playing black, but this Benko Gambit has gone really, really poorly for me. Obviously, these two passed pawns hurt a lot, and actually he has control of c4. A lot of times, black is supposed to be controlling this c4 square and should have a dark square bishop on this diagonal. He's winning this game. So the next move was a little bit strange. It was hasty. I don't actually think it was a sacrifice, but even if a5 was a sacrifice, because he hangs this pawn, there was no need for it. Those pawns aren't going anywhere. He can just prepare. Defend the pawn, prepare his pushes. There was absolutely no need, even if it was. But this is why I don't think it's a sacrifice, because here his mood noticeably changes, and it takes him a long time to consider what's happening. He's thrown away his advantage. His position's fairly equal. He could play a move like Queen b3, defending his knight. I'd probably try to kick it, something like this. And this is equal. He has some more advanced pass pawns, but if you look at the territory I'm controlling a lot of central squares in his position. His knight's kind of restrained by it, and he's not controlling that much with his. More than that, my pieces, they're ready to come in and restrain and attack his pawns. So I think this would be a very long fight. However, he's upset about losing his pawn, and he commits just an awful mistake. It's just Queen e2, and this is typical. This is a really normal kind of mistake that players make, where they get emotionally charged up because of a mistake, because you throw away your advantage and you make an even bigger mistake. And the second mistake is what kills you. So in your own games, when you feel that sense of urgency or that sense of I made a mistake, or sit on your hands for a second, take a couple of deep breaths, gather your thoughts, because very critical that you don't make the second mistake, even if it's much more subtle than hanging your queen. So this game is resignable, obviously, but he decided to play on, and sort of for our advantage, because there was some interesting things that happened. So he does need to defend his knight at this point from the queen, and so he does. But this rook was defending f2, and now it's not. And I get to jump on that pretty soon. So first I restrain his pawns. And so what happens here with knight e3, I think, is that he realized now that with my next move I'm going to be just killing him on f2. And this allows for rook c2 as a defense to f2. But he doesn't play it. He should have played it. But let's look at it real quickly. So here, this is really complicated, but I could play here because there's back rank weaknesses, right? The guy defending the back rank, obviously he can't leave because I would check. But at the same time I'm hanging my queen, so he could just take it, and after I capture, he can block with the knight, and he's regained some material. He's still down far too much material, and I've gotten both of his passed pawns, but really what's worse is this knight is lost already. There's no way to stop my rooks from just coming up and taking it. He can't get out of the pin in time. I just come here, take it. He couldn't play f2 because to move his rook there, because I'm controlling it, and he can't even counterattack because it doesn't come in time. Now I would take it with mate. So that's not an option. There are no good options when you're down this kind of material. So you could take my rook. No, we already talked about that. Yeah, so this is actually over. You could probably play here. This is so here. I have to get my queen out of the way at this point. The knight's actually doing the job of defending both rooks. So it looks like queen h5 is the only square. And then if you choose to pick up the knight, get your last pass pawn. Well, the position's kind of silly. I have so much material. There's back row weaknesses like crazy. You have no passed pawns anymore. This is obviously over. But this was still his best try. So what he does instead, though, is he actually goes back to rook f1. And this sets up a nice tactical theme of the overloaded piece. So obviously the rook's defending f2 now, but this rook also has the job of defending the rook on a1. So if this pawn wasn't here, I could just take the rook on a1, and now if he recaptures, you can see f2 is just weak again. So, and you might be able to tell I would win the knight with queen f2 check, and then I take the knight. So I get a lot of material for it, even if there wasn't mate threats coming afterwards. But there are mate threats coming afterwards, and so that's. It looks like you see very far ahead here, but really I'm seeing two different patterns, and I'm not even calculating. I see the overloaded piece. I see actually a smothered mate potential, and I know I'm up a lot of material. So it's really no question here to take rook b6. So he probably doesn't want to recapture, but what else? Maybe he can pipe dream about pushing that pawn because my pieces are so far away from it, but not really. So rook takes, obvious, right? That's the whole point, and there's nothing like interposing this knight, because now he's just in the same situation, but a knight down. And he can't say, I don't know, he can't play like h3 to get out of it. Because I would just take. Yeah. Right, and then I'm just, well, whatever, I'm just winning everything. He really doesn't have a choice, he has to take it. Okay, so I capture the obvious follow-up. He doesn't really have time to push that b6 pawn. So critical here is being able to vacate f2 for your knight, and luckily I get to do it while I capture a piece. But he doesn't have to allow me to do the smothered mate. He was kind and actually let me play it to the finish, but he could play something like a3. After the check, he can't go here because I would win this rook. And if he tried to get something for it, I would take on h3. I capture the rook with check. Wherever he goes, I actually get to now capture b6 with the check. And again, I mean, obviously the position is not really worth analyzing, but he instead, because there's nothing else, he pushes and actually allows me to play. This is a very famous mate, and if you don't know it, you should know it. It helped me see rook takes b6. And so the double check here is what kind of makes everything work. Now, if he comes here, it's mate in 1. But he's a nice guy, so he actually lets me play the entire thing. Can't capture with the king, so he has to box himself in, and I get to take with the knight, or to mate with the knight. So I got to give up a queen and 2 rooks. So the important takeaways of the video are observing your emotional state in the game and maintaining that emotional state when you recognize that you need to take a breath, that you do take a breath. And the two tactical motifs, the overloaded piece and the smothered mate, and how recognizing these patterns can replace a lot of calculation, or at least inspire you to do some calculation on the right kinds of things.